While the Rangers aren't as concerned about winning the offseason, they did just land a massive victory this offseason. Or should I say, a victory plus. We're talking about the Rangers' new TV deal, what it means for this offseason, and for the team moving forward. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about the Rangers' new deal with Victory Plus, what it means for fans, how you can watch, how much it's going to cost, and what it will impact on this team, not just now, but moving forward. Before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, the big news of the day, breaking late last night, according to Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News, and then announced this morning at 10 a.m., the Rangers have some news on the TV deal, or it will be something that you can watch on your TV, not necessarily cable, but a direct-to-fans streaming service, Victory Plus, which has been the home of the Dallas Stars this season, a new venture, also the home of the Anaheim Ducks, where fans have been able to watch games for free. And those Stars games are still going to be free, but the Texas Rangers ones are going to be there for not just this year, but a multi-year deal. This will be the way for fans to watch Texas Rangers games. Done are the days of Bally Sports Southwest, formerly Fox Sports Southwest, now FanDuel Sports Southwest. This is the way to watch the Rangers games. It will be on Victory Plus. It will cost fans $100 per season. A direct-to-fan streaming service. This is not going to replace any of those nationally televised, exclusively national TV deals, whether that's on Apple TV Plus, whether that's on, I don't know if Peacock is still a thing. There's so many different services that have had these, not the, playoff games, not the ESPN Sunday night games or some random Monday night games, but these are basically every other game is going to be available on this app, Victory Plus, for $100. There will also be some select spring training games. There will also be some extras, some player interviews, and things like that if you're into that sort of thing. But finally, we know what the heck is going on with the Rangers and how the heck we are even going to watch them in 2025 and beyond. Now, this is not it. This is not all that's happening, but this is an interesting way that the Rangers have decided to go about their TV situation. When they headed into the offseason, they had basically 4 choices for how they were going to go about broadcasting games. There was let Major League Baseball run the broadcast, which they've done with the San Diego Padres, with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I believe there are a few other teams that are switching over to Major League Baseball running their operations. Now, that would be probably the least monetarily incentivized deal. They'd be making the least amount of money there, but they also wouldn't have to really add anything. Major League Baseball would take on those costs, but again, in terms of how much money it would bring in the team and therefore how much money ownership would be willing to spend, that would be at kind of the bottom rung. Then there was the option of just staying with Bally, and that had become such a mess, both financially and just PR-wise, optics-wise. It just didn't seem like it was really an option. So the Rangers, it seemed clear, I think it was mid-season last year, where they said, this is it with Bally. This is all we're doing. We are not doing anything more with Bally Sports, FanDuel Sports, Fox, whatever Sports Southwest. We're done with that relationship, as were the Stars, as were the Mavericks. Then the Rangers had another option of create their own regional sports network, which they were working on. They were looking into the costs of what that would take to, acquire all of those, studios and cameras and all the different things that come along with broadcasting Major League Baseball games, they were looking into that, where it would probably be the most costly option in terms of upfront costs of, acquiring, not only, paying the talent, paying, for the equipment, paying for the broadcast, the cables, the studios, the truck, all of that stuff that is so expensive, but would give the Rangers the most ownership over what all was going on with their TV broadcast. They would be able to, have complete say, which, as someone who used to work for Fox Sports Southwest, I can tell you those teams have pretty much the final say in what is coming across their airwaves on those, Twitter wave, whatever was going on with the companies that have broadcast rights for teams. It's basically a PR extension of the team. They're not doing journalism there, which is fine. They got to maintain those relationships with the teams because that's where all the money comes from for them. But that would be the most upfront cost. I think long term it would have given them the most, financial boons if they wanted to invest the time and money and resources that it would take to run a station like that. But the Rangers hadn't done that so far. There's a few teams that have done it, some of the bigger market teams, not just in baseball, but, across sports, like the Knicks have their own, the Dodgers own their own TV. I think them and the Lakers combined. The Rockets and the Astros have combined to run, to buy out what was going on with their TV deals and kind of have ownership in that in Rocket City Media. The Yankees have the Yes Network, which also broadcasts Brooklyn Nets games. And then I think there's MSG or whatever, SNY that the Mets own. Maybe that's also part of somehow different than Madison Square Garden's thing with the Knicks owning it, and also it broadcasts the Rangers games, New York Rangers, not Texas Rangers games. But that was a lot of work. That was a lot of overhead costs immediately, and the Rangers ended up deciding, no, we're gonna go somewhere else. We're gonna go with a different way to go about things. We're going to follow kind of what the Stars and what the Mavericks have done. They're going to work with other existing companies to broadcast their own games. Now, there seemed to be basically two routes if they wanted to go that way. They could go with the Stars route, which they have, partnering with Victory Plus, a parent media company, conglomerate, which literally the name of the company is a parent media company, which is an interesting name for a company. But to let someone else kind of run those things, to take kind of the day-to-day and the overhead costs out of their hands and, just work with them and let them deal with all the advertising and the, cameras and all of that good stuff, which was kind of how the Rangers went with the Fox Sports deal for however long they were doing that. Or they could have gone, the traditional TV route like the Mavericks did and signed a deal with Tegna, which, full disclaimer, Tegna is the parent company that owns the Locked On Podcast Network. For my own journalistic integrity sake, I feel I should disclose that up front. But it's worked out well for both teams. It seems like, fans of Dallas sports teams, myself included, have really enjoyed these new deals and not dealing with Bally. There were so few options to get Bally. It was just such a hassle. As you Rangers fans know, maybe you listen to this pod every day, but you can't watch the Rangers because you want to pay however much it costs to get one of the, basically 3 different cable companies that provide Bally that, still had Bally, because the whole process there, it seemed like, were to drive up prices for these providers, make it very, very expensive and try and just milk every last penny they had out of the deal. And a lot of these different providers said, no, we're not going to do that. You're being unreasonable. So unless you had Spectrum or DirecTV or AT&T Uverse or maybe one other partner, you weren't getting Bally Sports Southwest. So you weren't getting Mavs games, Stars games, Rangers games. It was just not happening. And so as a result, a lot of fans were kind of driven away. It was not a good thing for the sport, not good thing for the teams. People just couldn't watch the games, and so people didn't care about the games as much, which is a real shame when your team is winning a championship and people aren't able to watch the regular season, get attached to these teams, and form those emotional connections. It's not a good thing for the sport in general. But coming up, we're going to look a little bit closer at the finances, what this means for the Rangers, not just in terms of how you can watch games, where you can watch games, how much it's going to cost you, but how much the Rangers are going to be willing to spend, or at least they should be. Right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's baseball games, whether it's concerts, whether it's comedy shows, whether it's theater, no matter what you're going to. Gametime is the best way to get tickets for any of those live events, because Gametime makes it so easy. They make it even easier now to get your tickets to your favorite events through their new feature called Gametime Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of ticket sites. Whether you're looking to go to a Rangers game, Rough Riders game, Mavs game, Stars game, no matter what you're looking to go get those tickets to, it can be a hassle if you're not using Gametime. So take out the fluff, filter out the fluff, and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back interviewing Alan Trejo, who signed a minor league deal with the Rangers, the 4-year career big leaguer, talking about why he signed with Texas, a little bit about what that process looks like, being in the room with CY, and we'll talk about a little bit more on tomorrow's show as well. Now, the Rangers have agreed to a multi-year deal with Victory Plus. What does that mean? Well, like I said, it's going to cost you $100 a season for this direct-to-consumer streaming service. It'll be available on smart TVs. It'll be available on smart devices, on your phone, on your iPad, on your PlayStation, your Apple TV, your smart TV, whatever different things you can think to put on there. It will be on there, also on victoryplus.com. Now, this does not mean that the Rangers games are going to be free like the Stars games. Like I said, $100 there. But the Stars games, and if you live in Anaheim, the Ducks games will still be free. It will be a way for people to actually watch the games, that you don't have to go through the hassle of paying basically this much a month for cable just to watch Rangers games. $100. It seems like a pretty reasonable price. That was basically what it costs for Major League Baseball to charge teams for, if you're living in San Diego, if you wanted a MLB TV account to just watch San Diego Padres games, it would cost $100 for the season. I think it was the same for Diamondbacks games as well. So it seems like they found that price point and said, okay, this is about what people would be willing to pay to watch these games. And now, in terms of what it's going to make for the Rangers, the financial terms were not disclosed, but according to Evan Grant, it seems like the consensus is that this is the deal that is better financially for the Rangers than if they let Major League Baseball run their broadcasts, or even if they went back to Bally for what would be, I don't know, I think maybe the final year of this deal. It was originally a 20-year deal that they signed with what was then Fox Sports Southwest. So with Fox, it was a 20-year deal that started in 2010. It was worth between $1.6 and $3 billion. There were two different reports that reported that basically both ends of the range of how much the Rangers were going to make from this 20-year deal. The Houston Chronicle at the time had it at the lower end at $1.6 billion, and then USA Today reported it was closer to $3 billion. So that's between a range of $80 and $150 million per year. Now, I don't think it ever got up to the $150 million per year. But towards the end of it, the Rangers were being owed around, I believe it was $105 to $115 million. And I know that they settled with Bally / Diamond Sports / whoever the heck they were actually dealing with for making $90 million that final year, this year, 2024. So taking that step back, that's why the payroll was scaled down for this year, because that's a significant step back, either on the low end $15 million down, or on the high end $25 million down. That's 1 year of an Nathan Eovaldi. That's a pretty substantial difference. But now the Rangers will be making more than that $90 million, more than the, who knows what it would have ended up being if Major League Baseball took over those broadcasts, how much the Rangers would actually end up taking home. But basically, it seems like this is a way for them to get even more money, and they're not done. this is not the only thing that the Rangers are doing. They are still pursuing that TV angle to not just get things for, the younger folks, the people who are more technologically adept, who can download the smart device, log in, put in their information and get those streaming services, which I think is the most convenient way for it to be done. But they're also working on television deals to, whether that's like a Mavs route where they're going the Tegna route. I have no inside information that's what they're doing, but that seems like a way that, they could go about things if they also want to have their non-nationally televised games on actual television and not just streaming. I don't think this would preclude them from also doing the streaming because, people need to stream. And honestly, Bally's streaming stuff was just such a pain in the butt. And so far with, how I've been using Victory, I haven't watched every single Stars game, but it's been a pretty convenient experience. Occasionally the Apple TV app will crash out on me, and sometimes it'll happen on the iPad. Sometimes things won't be working, but, this is year one of them, trying out this new stuff. This is a completely new system. I'm sure they use some, existing infrastructure, but for the most part, I think they've done a really good job of just making it watchable, making it, convenient to watch these things, which is the whole point. You want to make it easy for fans to actually watch your product, to give a crap. And if you're actually doing that in a way that, makes it possible and they don't have to go through these cable distributors, then that makes life easier. More fans will care. More people will come to games. More people will buy merchandise. More people will be watching your product. So therefore, you might be able to charge more for this TV deal and get more money for your club. So you could, theoretically, the whole point is spend more on payroll, at least for a fan's perspective. That's what you owe them, of actually spending like the top 5 market that you are. But the Rangers getting this kind of money, getting more stability, and still, if this deal alone is worth more than the $90 million that they were getting from Bally, there's still plenty more money to be made in the actual TV deal. The reason why it hasn't happened just yet, why this deal happened a little bit more quickly, is because there aren't as many hoops to jump through for these streaming rights as there are with the TV rights. There's all kinds of industry red tape and things like that go into the negotiations that have to be worked out. The intricacies are just a little bit more intricate and a little bit more in depth, and it just takes a lot longer for those things to be done. But the Rangers, when they're talking in their press release, Chairman Neil Liebman, who is basically the person who's in charge of finances for the Rangers, he said in the press release, quote, "The Rangers' partnership with Victory Plus as our direct-to-consumer provider is a tremendous first step as the club continues to finalize our television offerings for 2025 game broadcasts." Now, that the whole point of that is first step, that the Rangers are not done, that this is not all they are doing in terms of how you can watch games in 2025 and beyond. So there is even more money to be made. But, looking at what the broadcast was before, looking at how much they were getting before, it was just a massive, massive jump. That deal, with Fox at the time took the Rangers, how much they are getting, even if it was at the low end, around, $80 million, which it wasn't. It was $90 million at the end, and I'm pretty sure around $100 to $125 million. I mean, like I said, if between those reports, it was between $80 and $150 million. Maybe it was more towards the beginning because, TV networks were doing better in 2010, 2011, 2012 than they were they are, I should say, in 2025, or they were in 2024, 2023, when Bally and Diamond were having all of those problems. But, what they were making before, according to a Deadspin document that leaked out, or that Deadspin published about Major League Baseball and how much baseball teams were actually making, the Rangers took home $62.6 million in TV and radio revenue in 2008. That's $68.8 million in 2009. So the new deal was basically somewhere between a 20 and 130% increase on what they were making before. That's massive. It's massive. And it turned out to be unsustainable. It felt unsustainable at the time of how much the Rangers were increasing, especially as people were, falling off of TV. TV subscriptions and cable subscriptions were going down. Fewer and fewer people were watching cable because, it became so dang expensive. It didn't seem like that kind of money was going to be sustainable for the entire 20-year deal, which, would end in 2030. So we're still 5 years away from when that initial deal would end. And it started crumbling well before that. I mean, Fox ended up selling off its TV, its RSNs in, what was it? 2017, 2018 or so was when that first started going. They sold off a lot of those products to ESPN, which then sold them off to Bally or Sinclair, and then Sinclair sold those products to Diamond Sports, which was Bally and all of that stuff. So the name didn't really change. I don't think it changed until it was being bought by, once Sinclair was selling it. But it was just so many different hoops of, selling off to this and selling off to that, and just making things so much more difficult for fans to actually even watch games and care about games. And if the Rangers want to be, contenders, they want to get people to care. If they want to be the team, or let's be honest, the second most popular team in DFW behind the Cowboys, because it's going to be really hard to jump the NFL at anything, the Rangers need to get themselves in front of fans, and they need to spend money. And we're talking about how this actually impacts the rest of this offseason, what they're going to be doing, and 3 ways that it will impact this team and this franchise moving forward, right after this. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, like I said, I'll be back with Alan Trejo, hopefully talking a little bit before about the Rangers' international signings, prospect signings that they will hopefully be doing later today. We'll know maybe a little bit more about that, and who knows, maybe we'll even know where Roki Sasaki will be playing. We do know that it's not with Texas, but one thing that we do know with Texas is where you will be able to watch these games. It will be on Victory Plus. It will be $100, and it will be a financial boon for the club. Now, what does this actually mean in terms of what the heck the Rangers are going to do for the rest of this offseason? Well, it seems like a week ago, after the Rangers signed Chris Martin, the Rangers had basically 2 things left to do. Either sign Roki or don't. Figure out what the heck's going on with that. And then add a closer. And then call it an offseason. That's it. That's pretty much all the Rangers have left to do, except now they know they're not getting Roki, so they can go sign some prospects, which won't affect the tax budget and things like that, and then go get a closer. They don't necessarily need one. You would very much feel better about this bullpen if you add one more leverage relief guy. Chris Young has been talking in interviews that, it's probably either going to be, Chris Martin or Robert Garcia that is the Rangers closer if they don't add anybody else. There's been a lot of vague talk about, we're open to adding a veteran closer, or we're open to adding more back-end bullpen pieces, which to me feels like a leverage play that, the whole talk before the offseason was, the Rangers can't go into the tax. They can't go into the tax. They absolutely cannot go into the tax or they'll die. That'd be the worst thing in the world. But that's not really the worst thing in the world. Let's look at what it actually means for the Rangers. Now, the Rangers, according to Fangraphs, are basically $6 million away from the CBT. That $241 million, that is the competitive balance tax, the luxury tax, if you will, of where the Rangers are trying to avoid being third-year repeaters. Now, if you are in the luxury tax for 3 straight years, as opposed to 2 straight years, or 3 or more years, you get taxed 50 cents on every dollar you spend over that $241 million in terms of your luxury tax payroll, not the actual dollar, but luxury tax. It's calculated in a whole different way. You can go Google it, look it up for yourself, the actual specifics. But basically, once you go over $241 million, you're spending 50 cents on the dollar, every dollar over that. And that is the only amount that you're paying in luxury tax. Not, unless you're getting into the Cohen zone, you're not paying, twice as much for every dollar you spend. You get up to almost, 3 times with all of the different escalators and things like that. But if the Rangers are just going barely over the luxury tax, it's definitely something that they can do, and that they honestly probably should do, because the Rangers are one of the bigger market teams. They have a lot of people watching their games, or they have a big reach. 5 different states in their territory, 16.5 million households. And, at the time before they made this deal, Neil Liebman was talking about this, listing off these stats, and he said only 16%, a little over 2 million people could watch the Rangers games. Now, if you're in that 5-state area, you can just go spend $100 and you can watch it. It is possible. It is, so much more streamlined. And so the Rangers are a top 5 market, more than a top 5 market. There's New York, there's LA, Chicago, and then DFW is the number 4 media market, which it's coming up on Chicago as the number 3 media market in America in terms of households, in terms of how many people. I mean, the DFW area is exploding. There are so many people here, and therefore so many people that can watch Rangers games. And, not that many people have been, because it has been such a hassle. And this is a very, very good first step of just getting those households to be able to watch the Rangers, to not have to go through the hoops of, figuring out some cable provider and negotiating those fees with them, and then, dealing with all that. It's just, no, here it is. You can download it. You can watch it on your phone, on your tablet, on your smart TV, whatever. $100. That makes life so much more easy for people to actually watch these games and to actually just pay the money, because people have been willing. The fans that I've talked to that haven't been watching these games, they have been willing to pay the money that it would take to go and watch these games when it's at a reasonable price. And this feels like a pretty reasonable price to watch all the Rangers games for that amount of money. It's a little bit less than MLB TV is to watch all other games that are out of market. I wish you could just combine at this point. Now that the Rangers have this streaming option, I wish you could just combine, that, say, hey, plug it into your MLB TV account and say, hey, I also have this Victory Plus thing. Can I just stream it through here so you can stream multiple games at the same time if you are in market? But again, this seems very reasonable. So say you take the Fangraphs angle and the Rangers are basically $6 million away from that $241 million of the CBT. What does that actually look like in terms of how much it would cost? So basically, let's use Kirby Yates as an example, and say Kirby Yates is signing a a deal like Blake Treinen. Blake Treinen signed a 2-year, $22 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's $11 million a year. It's $13.5 million in the second year, $8.5 million in the first year, but it's $11 million per year. So the luxury tax both years counts as $11 million. So Rangers, that first $6 million of the $11 million for 2025 would be untaxed, and then they put the Rangers and their CBT payroll at $246 million. So that's 5% over. So they pay a 50% fee on that $5 million over. That's $2.5 million in luxury tax. That's it. And it seems like a perfectly reasonable deal for Kirby Yates to ask for, given the season that he came off of. Blake Treinen is another guy who is incredibly good, and they're about the same age. Yates is, I think, about a year older. So Treinen's heading into his age 37 and 38 season for this contract, and Yates, I believe, will be heading into his age 38 and 39 season for this contract. So Yates is a little bit better, had a little bit better of a season than Blake Treinen, but both of them very, very good. But let's say Kirby Yates wants more. Let's say he's thinking, no, I'm better than Blake Treinen. I deserve more than him. Let's get a Ryan Presley like AAV, which is $14 million. Probably not going to get more than 2 years because, again, he is in his late 30s and missed basically 2.5, close to 3 seasons of baseball where he just was not the same due to injuries. And he did come off of a great season, but I don't think he's getting any more than 2 years. But say he's making, $14 million a year. That gets the Rangers, it gets them all the way up to, let's say, where we go? It puts them at $249 million in luxury tax. So that's $8 million over. So you take that $8 million that you're over, 50% luxury tax, because it's third-year repeater. That's $4 million that they'd be paying in luxury tax. $4 million. That's 10% of what Jacob deGrom is making this year. That's not that much. I'm not asking the Rangers to go spend like Steve Cohen. I'm not asking them to spend like the Mets or the Yankees or even the Dodgers. Just do what you should be given how big a team you are, given where you are in your competitive window, and given the players you already have on your payroll. When you have superstars like Marcus Semien, like Corey Seager, like Jacob deGrom, like Nathan Eovaldi, that are in their prime, in their peak, at their competitive window, the window is wide open. It's wide open right now. It's not going to be forever. Eventually, the back end of those deals, those 5+ year deals, heck, even sometimes 3-year deals can end up looking bad on the back end. But especially when you go the, more than 5, 7-year, 10-year deals, at age 37 or 38, whenever Marcus Semien is at the end of that deal, it's not going to look pretty. He's probably not going to be a 5, 6, 7 war player. Same with Corey Seager when he's in his age 37, 38 season towards the end of that deal in 2031 or whenever it is. It's probably not going to be that great. Same with even Jacob deGrom, we could say, when he is 38 or so at the end of that deal and he's making, $25 to $35 million. I can't remember exactly what it is on the back end. He's making the most he's making in any year to the deal this year. You're in that window. At $4 million in luxury tax is not going to kill you. Heck, even $5, $6, $7 million in luxury tax is not going to kill you. You don't have to go and get a Tanner Scott and get, $10 million. Because once you're $20 million over the luxury tax, then you start getting in those additional bonus luxury taxes and you start spending closer to, 75 cents on the dollar, every dollar you spend over, or, $2 for every, or $1 for every dollar you spend over. So you're spending twice as much once you get over, I think it's $261 million. They don't even need to go into that zone. They just need one closer. So go do it. Go spend that money. Stop using these excuses. The 3 things that this really accomplishes when it boils down to it is number 1, the Rangers can't and won't use, we don't know how much money we're making, or I say can't. They might still. They shouldn't be using this excuse of we don't know how much money we're making with the new TV deal, so we can't spend money. That's out. They've spent money this offseason. They even had a bigger deals on the table for Max Fried to spend that money. Number 2, it means more people can watch games more easily. You can have more fans actually give a crap about the sport. You can make it easier for them to give a crap about the sport, more convenient for them to watch these games, and just make life easier on the people that are already going to watch your games no matter what. That's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing. And number 3, this team can get back to spending like a top 5, top 10 payroll, at least, especially during these years. They're probably never going to be in the Steve Cohen range or the New York Yankee range or even the Dodgers range, but you've got to be no lower than 10th with this kind of a team, with this kind of a market, and with these kind of deals, because this isn't done. They're going to make even more money once they get that actual TV deal signed to get it to cable and not just direct-to-consumer streaming. It's going to make life that much easier. So this boils down to a big win for Rangers fans, hopefully a big win for Rangers payroll, and a step that Chris Young can finally go get that closer and call it a pretty darn good offseason to maybe even a fantastic offseason, even without getting that Roki Sasaki. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.